Good afternoon. It's a great day to be 1-0. We certainly could not have done it without our fans and our student section, which I have not heard the final numbers, but I thought they were just outstanding. And they were into it from the moment I got out there when we arrived at the stadium today. They forced a delay of game penalty against our opponents today, which I thought was tremendous, and along with a couple other things, allowed us to give Ms. Herman her first game ball for her first win as our athletic director, which I know the team was excited to do that. A couple things that I thought were really important in today's game before I take questions. I thought special teams really played a big part in this game, and it's certainly something we pride ourselves in, but number 99, he had a great day, not just punting, but kicking off for us, and that was exciting to see him come back from last week where he's a little bit less consistent. And then Karan blocking the punt, which, we are going to come after punts, and that is our personality to do that and to get a block today. I thought we had another chance to get one. Carew can't seem to come loose on one of them, and I don't know if he didn't get there or his hands were in the wrong spot. We'll have to look at the film to see what it was about the details of that play that kept us from blocking it. But we got one, and I think that's important because that created a short field for us and ultimately a touchdown. If you want to have a tough football team, it usually starts with running the football and stopping the run, and I think today we were able to do both of those, so I'm pleased with that. And I think we also had a lot of younger players in our program get their first opportunity to play football in a college football game. And sometimes when you're watching it on film or you're watching somebody else do it or you're doing it in practice, it may seem a little bit easier than it is when you actually have to get out there and do it yourself against live competition. And I give credit to Norfolk State and their program. They fought very hard and battled very hard today, and their program does a good job, and they coach their players the right way, and I'm sure they'll go on to have a good season. Questions?
How do you think it was important for the defense just to put in this kind of a performance after last week?
I think the game was significantly different, and I don't know that once we make the corrections from last week that this game will really be impacted by it. So I think it was important for us to play good defense because we've got a tradition here of playing good defense. And today I think the final stat was something like 26 or 27 carries for 56 yards, and that's the way we want to play defense. We want to make sure we put people in passing situations and then give ourselves the ability to rush the passer and hopefully create some turnovers. But I was pleased with the way we flew around on defense. We played a lot of players on defense today, and I think down the road that's going to help us.
What did you see offensively from you guys?
We came into the game today wanting to run the football, and we were able to do that a little bit more consistently than we did last week, so I was pleased with that. Probably not as many big explosive plays as we had last week, but I think we ended up churning up over about 273 yards of rushing at the end of the day. So that's a good day's work up front, and that was one of our primary goals as a coaching staff, was to hopefully come into the game and run the ball effectively and be able to run it throughout the game, not just in the first half or the second half or at the end of the game, but really during all these different situations, and I was pleased with the way we did that.
Well, it seemed to you that the offense was struggling to find a rhythm, and I ask that only because the 5 touchdown drives were not, you didn't have any long sustained drives, which I know you, especially if you're trying to run the ball, you're going to have those. You didn't have them all day today.
It was something that I was conscious of in the first half. When we went to halftime, we had some short fields and we capitalized on them. So that's the good part of it. The offense doesn't always control exactly where we get the ball, and because of turnovers and a block punt and a fumble, we got the ball at the 15-yard line, scored a touchdown. The 19-yard line scored a touchdown. The 32-yard line scored a touchdown. If those are field goals, it's a much different game. It's a much different conversation that we're having. So I was pleased that we took advantage of the short fields, and it really wasn't until the second half where we had a couple more sustained drives. So we got to look at where were we a little bit off in execution on a couple of those drives in the first half. But 3 of the first 5 drives for touchdowns, that part I'm pleased about.
Kyle, PJ got the start and had the 3 touchdowns, but actually if you look at it, Savon had more carries. Is that kind of the ideal way that these two guys can work together, like two backs?
It's very rare that you have just one. I've said this many times. Even when Ray was here, it was Ray and Brian. It was Ray and Brian, then it was Ray and Cordell Young. The third year. So we've always had 2 backs, and we've always wanted to give it to 2 backs. And today it was 18 carries and 21 carries, so that's 40. Now, we did hand it to Juwan 41 times in a game last year, and we handed it to Savon 41 times in a game last year. But that was because the other guy had been dinged up. I think when you can run the ball like this, it allows those backs to not only stay fresher, but it may give you a little bit more longevity as you go through the year.
Kyle, how much of the success running the ball can be credited to having Burton back?
I think a lot of it. I don't think it's any surprise to it's any shock to me or to this football team that when Michael Burton's healthy, we run the ball better. I think that played out last year. But at the same time, if Michael Burton's helmet comes off or his shoelace breaks, we need to have other players in the program that step up and can fill that void for us. It can't just be about Michael.
Kyle, we've been seeing this, Paul James back it up. His first performance was the second one. Now we've seen that. So he's had 40 carries in 2 games. Is any of this a surprise to you since his first 2 years? He didn't carry the ball at all, didn't see a lot of action, didn't take any kind of pounding. Are you curious to see how he's holding up with all this?
It's not really a surprise to me because I thought PJ had a great offseason. And, in the past, he had been a little bit dinged up at times, and that maybe kept us from looking at him maybe as much as we would have liked to. But at the same time, I think Juwan Jamison was a really good running back for us. So I think right now, after the offseason that PJ had, it doesn't surprise me. If you would ask me at the end of last season, I would have said it's a complete unknown. I don't know that. But after watching him through the offseason, I was very pleased. And I was confident that he would be able to sustain himself through the season.
Coach, 11 penalties. Does that speak to some of the inexperience?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, you start looking at some of the guys here. I mean, that's one of the things I try to keep track of as the game's going on. We've got a true sophomore, a true freshman, a first-year starter. And then at the end of the game, we got a bunch of guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 penalties at the end of the game by guys who really have never played significantly in a game before. So if you're asking me, does it surprise me? No. But I think the expression "to be expected but not tolerated" is probably appropriate when you look at it.
Kyle, Toller starting today over Glass. What went into that during the week and the thoughts behind it?
I think both of those guys are starters in my mind. I think it was coming off the first game and then the week of practice, we make those decisions. But I don't know that one guy played more than the other. I wouldn't read anything into it. Next week it could be flipped. But they both know going into the game that they're going to play significantly.
You mentioned a bunch of the new guys. To the naked eye, did anybody stand out with their effort or with their play? Some of the freshmen or some of the redshirt freshmen who got in for the first time?
It's hard to say without looking at the film. When Goodwin rips off a run, I mean, that's obvious. I think to everybody in the stadium, they see that. But I think a guy like L.J. Liston, got significant time today playing middle linebacker, and I'm anxious to watch the film and really see how he did. Some of those younger D linemen, guys like Al Page and Sebastian Joseph, who played, I want to say the fourth quarter of the game. It's great experience, for them to be out there, and really allows us to truly evaluate them. Because as I've said, until you do it in a game, it's tough for me to really trust that it's going to happen. Until then, it's still a little bit of an unknown.
How big was it for, both for him personally and for the offense as a whole, for Ruhan to get his first score?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think of those things like that. Ruhan had a huge catch for us in the overtime last year that put us in position to throw Brandon Coleman the slant to give us a chance to win the game. So if a pass is completed and it ends up going in the end zone, certainly we're excited about that. But I think Ruhan's going to score a lot of touchdowns in his career here.
What makes him so valuable in the slot there?
He's a very nifty route runner and very difficult to tackle. Excellent hands. Guys who play in the slot have to play in a lot of traffic. So you need to have somebody who has tremendous, what we call ball skills, in the football world, and he has those.
We got time for 2 more.
Kyle, any concern with another missed field goal this week?
No. I mean, I'd like to be 100% on the field goals, but right now we're not. It was the most positive thing about it, I think, was that he came back at the end and made another field goal. And Kyle's made enough field goals for us as a program that I have confidence in him.
Any disappointment? Gary only had 21 pass attempts. He was sacked twice. He was under pressure about 3 or 4 other times. Was that a little disappointing to you?
The sacks are disappointing. Absolutely. Yeah, the sacks are disappointing. I think one of them we might have been hot on. I think one of them might have been an MA by the running back who was in at the time. I have to look at that. The protections are tough to evaluate on game day, during the game. You have to really watch the film to make sure you're getting it. We don't get the pictures that the NFL has. It's a little easier to see when you have the pictures. But I do know the 2 sacks because we discussed them on the sideline, what they were. Some of the other things we have to look at. But I'm not disappointed he only had 21 passes. That's not an issue for me. How many times he throws the ball in a game? I don't have a number. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 2 sacks and 21 passes is way too many. Way too many. In the NFL, generally 1 every 18 is considered you're doing a good job. 1 every 24 it was probably you're doing a very good job.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, guys.